The night Rachel left, the house felt smaller, like all the walls were closing in. Marcus stood in the living room holding Ethan and Lily, their little bodies shaking with tears. The children didn't understand why their mother had packed her bags so quickly, why she refused to look at them as she zipped her suitcase. "Mommy, please don't go," Ethan cried, clutching her leg. His voice cracked, his 10-year-old heart breaking in ways he couldn't put into words. Lily, only 7, sobbed so hard her chest hurt, pressing her face against Marcus's shirt, not wanting to look at her mother walking away. Rachel's eyes didn't soften. She stood tall, dressed in a new red dress Marcus had never seen before, her hair carefully styled as if she were going to a party. She bent down, not to hug them, but to pry Ethan's hands off her leg. "You'll understand when you're older," she said, her tone sharp, almost rehearsed. "I need something more than this life." Marcus's throat tightened. He wanted to scream, to beg her to think about the children, but his voice refused to leave his chest. He just held Lily tighter as she wailed. His heart cracked with every sound. Rachel grabbed her suitcase and walked toward the door without turning back. The kids ran after her, their small feet padding across the floor, calling, "Mommy, Mommy." She paused for one brief second, her hand on the doorknob, but she didn't look back. Then, with one smooth pull, she opened the door, stepped out, and left. Marcus followed with the children to the window. They watched through blurry tears as Rachel placed her suitcase in the trunk of a shiny black car waiting outside. The man inside, Victor, didn't even bother to step out. He leaned across to push open the passenger door, his face cold, rich, and detached. Rachel got in without hesitation. The car started, the headlights cutting across the street, and then it rolled away into the night. The silence that followed was heavier than thunder. Ethan pounded his fists against the window, screaming for his mother. Lily buried her face in Marcus's chest, her sobs turning into hiccups. Marcus stood frozen, staring at the empty street where the car disappeared. His arms wrapped tightly around his children, but inside, he felt like a hollow man. His wife hadn't only left him, she had abandoned their children too. As the night grew quieter, Marcus whispered to his kids, his voice breaking. "It's okay. Daddy's here. I'm not going anywhere." But even as he said it, he knew the wound Rachel left behind would never fully heal. Marcus had never been a man of riches, but he was a man of effort. Every morning, he woke up before the sun, pulling on his oil-stained work boots, and heading to the small mechanic shop where he fixed cars. His hands were always rough, his shirts always smelled faintly of grease, but he carried himself with quiet pride. For Marcus, every hour he worked meant food on the table, school supplies for Ethan and Lily, and a warm home for his family. He believed love and sacrifice were worth more than anything money could buy. Rachel once believed that too. In their early years, she would bring him lunch at the shop, sitting on an overturned tire while he wiped his hands and smiled at her. She used to laugh when he came home tired, telling him she loved his strong, hard-working hands. For a while, their simple life was enough for her. But as time passed, Rachel began to change. She grew restless with the cracked floors in their kitchen, the second-hand couch, and the way Marcus would always say, "Maybe next year," when she asked about vacations. She wanted more than Marcus could give. She began comparing their life to the glossy pictures in magazines, to the wealthy neighbors with shiny cars and designer clothes. Slowly, she stopped seeing Marcus's love as enough. She started seeing his life as a cage. That was when Victor appeared. A businessman with sharp suits and a silver watch, Victor was everything Marcus was not. Rich, confident, and able to spoil Rachel with the kind of attention and gifts Marcus couldn't afford. Rachel's laughter grew louder around Victor, her eyes brighter. And Marcus noticed. He saw the distance in her gaze, the way she stayed longer at the mall or came home smelling of perfume he hadn't bought. He asked her once if something was wrong, but she brushed him off, saying, "You wouldn't understand." When she finally left, she didn't just leave Marcus. She left her children too. Ethan and Lily were the ones who suffered most. Ethan, at only 10 years old, tried to act strong for his father and sister, but Marcus often found him sitting quietly on the porch at night, staring into the distance with tears brimming in his eyes. Lily, younger and more open with her feelings, would crawl into Marcus's bed at night, whispering, "Daddy, what if Mommy never comes back?" Marcus didn't always know what to say. His own heart was broken, but he refused to let his children drown in pain. He became both father and mother, learning to braid Lily's hair in the mornings and packing Ethan's lunch before school. He worked long hours at the shop, but no matter how tired he was, he always came home to cook dinner, help with homework, and read bedtime stories. Some nights, after the children fell asleep, he would sit in the quiet kitchen with his head in his hands, fighting back his own tears. But when morning came, he put on a brave face again. Slowly, the bond between Marcus and his children grew stronger. They clung to him because he never wavered, never left. When Ethan scored a goal at his school soccer game, Marcus was the loudest one cheering from the stands. When Lily painted a picture of their family, it showed only her, Ethan, and her dad, smiling together. Those moments kept Marcus going. The absence of Rachel was heavy, but in some ways, it made Marcus's love shine brighter. He wanted his children to know they were worth everything, even if their mother chose money over them. Still, there were nights when Ethan asked, "Dad, why wasn't our love enough for Mom?" Marcus would pull his son close, his heart twisting, and say, "It wasn't you, son. It was never you. Some people forget what really matters, but I'll never forget. I'll always be here." Rachel might have traded her family for wealth, but Marcus knew one thing for certain. The bond between him and his children was stronger than any luxury. It had been a full year since the night Rachel left. Marcus had built a steady rhythm with Ethan and Lily. School runs in the morning, long hours at the shop, dinner together in the evening, and little rituals that made their house feel alive again. The wounds hadn't completely healed, but the three of them had found a way to smile through the pain. One Saturday afternoon, while Marcus was in the yard fixing the lawnmower and the kids were drawing with chalk on the driveway, a shiny white car pulled up to the curb. At first, Marcus thought it was a neighbor or a lost driver. But then he saw her. Rachel stepped out, her heels clicking against the pavement, her dress bright and expensive looking, her hair done perfectly. She held 2 large shopping bags in her hands, filled with wrapped gifts. Ethan froze, the chalk falling from his hand. Lily's eyes widened, and she instinctively grabbed Marcus's arm. "Mom," Ethan whispered, his voice unsure, torn between shock and longing. Rachel's smile was wide, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Hello, my babies," she said softly, walking toward them as if nothing had happened. "I missed you so much." Marcus stood up slowly, his chest tightening. He hadn't seen her in 12 months, not even a phone call. And now she was here, dressed like a queen, carrying gifts like peace offering. Rachel knelt down in front of Ethan and Lily, holding out the bags. "Look what I brought you. Toys, clothes, everything you've ever wanted. Mommy made a mistake, but I'm here now. We can be a family again." Lily didn't move. She pressed herself closer to Marcus, her lips trembling. Ethan looked at the gifts, then at his mother, confusion written all over his young face. His heart wanted to run to her, but his memory reminded him of the night she walked away without looking back. Marcus's jaw tightened. He could see what Rachel was doing. She wasn't here because she had changed. She was here because life had changed for her. The shine of her jewelry and the smell of her perfume couldn't cover the truth. She was trying to buy her way back into the children's hearts. Rachel looked up at Marcus, her smile faltering when she saw his cold stare. "Marcus," she said, almost pleading, "I was wrong. I thought I needed more, but I realize now. I need my family." Marcus's eyes didn't soften. "Family isn't something you can just walk away from and pick up when you feel like it," he said quietly. Rachel's smile tightened. "Don't poison them against me. I'm still their mother." She turned back to Ethan and Lily, her voice syrupy. "Come to Mommy. Don't you miss me?" Ethan shifted uncomfortably. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then he asked the question Marcus had dreaded but knew would come. "Why did you leave us?" His voice cracked, but his eyes were steady. Rachel froze, caught off guard. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Finally, she forced a shaky laugh. "You'll understand when you're older. Mommy just made a mistake." Lily shook her head fiercely. "You left Daddy. You left us. I don't want your presence." Rachel's face fell. For the first time, a shadow of panic crossed her expression. She reached out, but the children stayed close to Marcus, their trust now guarded. Marcus placed a protective arm around them, his voice firm but calm. "You should go, Rachel. If you want to see them, it won't be on your terms. They're not toys you can buy back. They're my children, and I won't let you hurt them again." Rachel's eyes hardened, but she forced a smile and stood up, brushing off her dress. "We'll see about that," she muttered, glancing at Marcus with a look that promised trouble. Then she walked back to her car, leaving the gifts on the driveway, as if they were proof of her love. The three of them stood together, watching her car pull away. Ethan's small hand slipped into Marcus's, while Lily buried her face against his side. Marcus knew this was only the beginning of a new storm, and he would have to protect his children more fiercely than ever. Rachel did not disappear after that first visit. Instead, she began showing up often, almost every week. Sometimes she arrived at the children's school with a flashy car, stepping out in high heels that clicked against the pavement. Other times she came to the house uninvited, arms full of shopping bags and her face painted with a smile that never reached her eyes. "Look what Mommy brought you," she would say, pulling out tablets, sneakers, and clothes with brand names Marcus had only ever seen on billboards. Ethan's eyes would always flicker with longing. He was only 10, still young enough to crave his mother's love, still old enough to feel her absence. Lily, however, stayed firm. She would cross her little arms and shake her head. "I don't want it. I don't need it." Sometimes she even ran into her room, slamming the door so she wouldn't have to see Rachel's face. Rachel never stopped smiling at Ethan. She whispered to him, "We could go on trips together. Just you, me, and Lily. I could take you to Disneyland. Don't you miss that kind of fun?" Ethan would look down, unsure. He did miss her. Deep inside, he wanted to believe she meant it. But when he looked at his father, standing silent in the corner with tired eyes and oil-stained hands, guilt would wash over him. Marcus never told the children to hate their mother. He believed it wasn't his place to plant bitterness in their hearts. But at night, when he lay awake, he battled the storm in his chest. How could Rachel, after abandoning them, act as if she could buy her way back? How could she look into her children's eyes and pretend nothing happened? The balance of their home began to shift. Ethan grew quiet, sometimes defensive. "Maybe Mom really has changed," he whispered to Marcus one evening. "Maybe she just wants us back." Marcus sighed, pulling his son close. "Son, people can say many things, but love isn't shown with gifts. It's shown with staying when times are hard." Still, Marcus knew Ethan's heart was torn. Then Rachel escalated things. One afternoon, Marcus received a thick envelope. Inside were legal papers. Rachel was filing for partial custody. Her claim was sharp. Marcus was too poor to give the children the life they deserved. Marcus's chest tightened as he read the words over and over. His hands shook. He worked long hours, gave his children everything he could, and never let them go to bed hungry. But in Rachel's eyes, and in the eyes of her wealthy world, it wasn't enough. When the news spread, the community split in half. At the shop, customers and neighbors whispered. Some shook their heads in anger. "That woman abandoned her family. She has no right to come back now." Others muttered under their breath, "Children need their mother. Marcus should forgive her, for the sake of the kids." At church, one woman even approached Marcus directly. "Brother Marcus," she said gently, "sometimes pride can hurt children more than divorce ever will. Maybe let Rachel back in. It's not about you, it's about them." Marcus bit back his reply, only nodding politely. They didn't see the nights his children cried themselves to sleep. They didn't see Lily's anger or Ethan's confusion. They didn't see the weight Rachel had put on his shoulders when she walked away. Rachel, meanwhile, played her part well. She showed up in court filings as a reformed mother, saying she regretted her choices. She dressed modestly for certain community events, spoke softly about wanting her babies back, and cried just enough to gain sympathy. People who didn't know the full story began to murmur that maybe Marcus was being selfish. At home, the tension was breaking them. Ethan snapped at Lily when she insulted their mom. "Stop saying she doesn't care. She's trying," he yelled, his voice cracking with anger. Lily shouted back, "She left us. She left you too. Why don't you see that?" Then she ran to her room in tears, slamming the door. Marcus stood in the hallway, his chest heavy. He wanted to protect them both, but he felt powerless against the storm Rachel had stirred. One evening, after another unannounced visit from Rachel, Marcus sat on the porch with his head in his hand. Lily came out quietly and leaned against him. "Daddy," she whispered, "are we going to lose you too?" The question nearly broke him. He pulled her onto his lap and held her tightly. "No, sweetheart. No matter what happens, I'll never leave you. Not ever." But inside, Marcus knew the battle was only beginning. Rachel was not just after visits. She wanted to take the children, at least part of the time, and she had money, charm, and influence on her side. Marcus didn't fear for himself. He feared for Ethan and Lily. He knew what kind of damage Rachel could do if she got her hands back into their lives. She had already broken their hearts once. Could he stand by and let her do it again? The quiet house no longer felt safe. Every knock at the door carried tension. Every whispered conversation in town carried judgment. And every night, Marcus lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how he would fight a woman who had already chosen money over family. This wasn't just about forgiveness anymore. This was about survival. The courthouse smelled of polished wood and paper. Marcus sat at one side of the room, his hands clenched together on the table, his heart pounding in his chest. Across from him, Rachel sat with her lawyer, dressed in a soft gray dress, her makeup carefully chosen to make her look like the picture of a grieving, reformed mother. She looked calm on the outside, but Marcus could see the strain behind her eyes. When the judge entered, the courtroom hushed. The case began with Rachel's lawyer standing tall, voice smooth and confident. "Your Honor," he said, "my client regrets her past mistakes, but she is here today because she loves her children. She has made changes in her life, she is financially stable, and she is ready to provide Ethan and Lily with opportunities their father simply cannot." Rachel dabbed her eyes with a tissue, glancing toward the children as if she had been crying all night for them. Ethan shifted uncomfortably in his seat beside Marcus, while Lily glared at her mother with narrowed eyes. When it was Marcus's turn, his lawyer spoke plainly. "Your Honor, this is not about money. This is about loyalty, love, and commitment. Rachel abandoned her children for over a year. She left them crying at the door while she drove away with another man. She made no attempt to call, no attempt to support them. And now she comes back not with apologies but with gifts, as if her children's love can be purchased. Murmurs rippled through the room. Rachel stiffened, her eyes flickering with anger. The judge leaned forward. I would like to hear from the children. The courtroom grew tense. Marcus's stomach twisted. He didn't want Ethan and Lily to carry such a heavy burden, but he also knew their voices mattered. Ethan was called first. He walked slowly to the witness stand, his small hands gripping the edge as he sat down. The judge smiled gently. Ethan, you don't need to be afraid. Just tell us what you feel. Ethan's eyes darted between his parents. He swallowed hard. I missed my mom, he began, his voice trembling. When she left, I thought maybe it was my fault. I thought maybe if I had been better, she would have stayed. His voice cracked, and Rachel's eyes filled with tears. But then I saw how hard my dad worked, Ethan continued. He never left us. He cooked for us, he helped me with homework, he came to all my games. He was always there. Ethan turned, looking straight at the judge now. I love my mom, but I want to stay with my dad. Because I know he won't leave again. Marcus's eyes burned, pride and sorrow tangled in his chest. Then Lily was called. She marched to the stand with surprising courage for her age. She sat down, swinging her legs slightly, and stared directly at her mother. You left us, she said bluntly. You chose someone else instead of me and Ethan. I don't want your presents. I don't want trips. I just want my dad. He's the one who stayed. Rachel's face crumpled. For a moment, she tried to smile through her tears, but it broke into a sob. The courtroom was silent except for her crying. The judge raised a hand. Thank you, children. That is all. As they stepped down and returned to Marcus's side, Rachel's mask finally fell. Her voice shook, rising almost in desperation. I only left because I thought I deserved more. I thought Victor loved me. But she stopped abruptly, her lawyer pulling at her sleeve. But the words hung in the air like thunder. The judge's brow furrowed. Victor? Marcus's lawyer stood. Your Honor, it is important to note that Rachel left not for a better life for her children, but for a wealthy man. And now, as she just admitted, that man is no longer in her life. She is here not out of love, but out of desperation. Gasps echoed in the room. Rachel covered her face with her hands, shaking her head. He promised me everything, she whispered, almost to herself. And then he left me with nothing. The judge banged the gavel once. Order. He looked directly at Rachel, his voice firm. Parenthood is not a game of wealth and loss. It is about consistency, sacrifice, and presence. These children have spoken clearly. My decision is final. Custody remains with Marcus. Marcus exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. Ethan and Lily clung to him, relief washing over their faces. Rachel sat crumpled at her table, her tissue soaked with tears, her glamorous mask shattered. She had walked away from love, and now love had walked away from her. Marcus didn't gloat. He simply gathered his children into his arms, whispering, "We're going home." The courthouse steps felt like the weight of the world had been lifted from Marcus's shoulders. The papers were signed, the judge's words were final, custody was his. He looked down at Ethan and Lily, who clung to each of his hands, their small fingers tight around his own. For the first time in months, they weren't scared. They were smiling, even if faintly, because they knew where home truly was. Rachel walked out a few minutes later, her heels clicking unevenly on the stone floor. The expensive dress she wore no longer looked powerful, it looked out of place. Her makeup, once flawless, was streaked with tears. She glanced at Marcus, then at the children, her lips trembling as if she wanted to say something. But no words came. The kids shrank closer to their father, their choice clear, and Rachel turned away, walking slowly down the steps alone. Marcus watched her go, his chest heavy. Part of him wanted to feel anger, to shout after her about the nights he had spent holding their children while they cried, about the birthdays she had missed, the pain she had caused. But instead, he just felt tired. She had made her choice long ago, and she was living with it now. He knelt down in front of Ethan and Lily, pulling them close. "Listen to me," he said softly, his voice breaking. "You are enough. You'll always be enough. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care how hard life gets. I will never leave you." Lily buried her face against his shoulder, whispering, "I know, Daddy." Ethan, his eyes red but steady, nodded. "We believe you." That night, back at their small home, Marcus cooked dinner like he always did. The children sat at the table laughing at silly jokes, the sound filling the house with warmth. The walls, though simple and worn, felt alive again. For the first time in a long time, Marcus wasn't haunted by the fear of losing them. After dinner, he tucked Lily into bed, smoothing her hair back as she yawned. She whispered, "We don't need mommy anymore. We just need you." Marcus kissed her forehead, his throat tight. "You'll always have me." Ethan came into the room a few minutes later, carrying his soccer ball. "Dad," he said quietly, "are you proud of us? For telling the truth today." Marcus pulled him into a hug, holding him tight. "I've never been prouder. You were braver than I ever could have been at your age. Both of you were. You're the reason I keep going." Later, when the house was quiet, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea. He thought of Rachel, the way she had walked out of court alone, the emptiness in her eyes. He felt no victory, no triumph, only a calm certainty that he had chosen the right path. Love had won, not money. In the weeks that followed, life slowly found its rhythm again. Marcus returned to the shop, Ethan returned to his soccer game, and Lily painted more pictures of their little family. Each one showed the same thing: her brother, and her dad smiling together. Rachel's shadow no longer loomed over their lives, and while the scars of her betrayal would always remain, Marcus knew those scars had shaped them into something stronger. Their bond wasn't broken, it was unshakable. For Marcus, there was no mansion, no luxury car, no expensive gift in the world that could ever compare to the feeling of hearing his children laugh again under his roof. He didn't just win custody that day. He won back their peace. He won back their trust. And together, they began to build. The house was quiet that night. The day had been long, filled with tears, fear, and relief, but now there was only peace. Marcus moved through the small hallway, checking on his children like he always did. He pushed open Lily's door first. She was already half asleep, her tiny hands clutching her stuffed rabbit. Marcus bent down and kissed her forehead gently. "Good night, sweetheart," he whispered. She murmured something soft, the kind of sleepy words only a child could say, and then drifted off completely. Next, he went into Ethan's room. His son was still awake, staring at the ceiling, lost in thought. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, brushing his hand over Ethan's blanket. "Dad," Ethan said quietly. "Yes, son?" Marcus answered, his voice calm. "Are you happy now?" Ethan's eyes searched his father's face, as if the answer mattered more than anything. Marcus paused, feeling the weight of the question. He looked at his boy, the same boy who had stood in court that morning, brave beyond his years. He thought of Lily, safe and loved in the next room. And he thought of the bond they had built through every hardship. A soft smile touched his lips. His eyes glistened, but they were warm, not heavy. "Yes, Ethan, I've got everything I'll ever need, right here with you and your sister." Ethan's face relaxed. He nodded, closed his eyes, and finally allowed himself to sleep. Marcus sat there a moment longer, his heart full. The pain of betrayal would never be forgotten, but it no longer defined them. What mattered was this: family, love, and the promise that they would never face the world alone again. And with that, Marcus turned out the light. "Hey besties, thanks for staying with me till the end of this emotional story. Imagine your wife leaving you and your kids for a rich man, only to return a year later trying to buy back their love. Painful, right? But love and loyalty can't be bought, they're earned. If this touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, drop a comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories. See you next time.